Welcome, I'm AlocsaV, and today I'm starting a beginner's guide for EMPYRION Galactic Survival. On this video I will talk about customization, the in-game settings, how to set up the difficulty and other features of the game. So I'm gonna start a game on single player. These four options. Survival is basically just normal vanilla game. The scenario, you can actually download mods and scenarios from the workshop and play them. Creative is God mode where you can build whatever you want without caring about any of the survival aspects. And freedom is just like survival, but you also don't have to care about survival too much. So if you just want to play the normal game, you choose survival. Here you have four different options for a starter planet. This is the one that I recommend for beginners because food is more available, enemies are less dangerous, you don't have to worry about oxygen, you don't have to worry about radiation or temperature, and it's more pleasing to the eye, to be honest. But the main reason is the most easy starting planet. You can also choose an arid planet, a swamp, or a snow. For a beginner, I definitely recommend this one. You can change the planet size from medium to large. Down here, you have information about the resources that you can find on the planets. These three are found in any planet that you start on because these are the basic ores: iron, copper, and silicon. If you go up here to difficulty settings, you can actually set up a bunch of different options of the game, and I'm gonna go through each one of them. The first option is the start equipment. It determines what you start off with, what sort of equipment in terms of tools, and also it raises or lowers a little bit your initial health. But it's not a big issue because it's quite simple to get tools and bandages early on in game. But you can change this setting if you'd like to. The second option, keep inventory on death, determines what you keep when you die. If you say nothing, you basically have to go out and recover your bag to get all your stuff back. You can also change it to everything, which means you won't drop a single thing and you continue as nothing happened. You can change the toolbar items only, which means you only drop the things in your inventory. So you can change this and basically deal with death in the game the best way that you prefer. So also you can change the rate of progression in terms of XP because there is a tech tree and you have to unlock devices by gaining XP points. So if you want to get them faster, you can also change this setting. The degradation speed influences how fast you can destroy or salvage blocks in the game because this is a voxel game. So in case you want to do it faster, you can also change the speed of degradation. The next three items on the list determines how the environment itself affects your character, especially the temperature and radiation. This has a severe impact on your character. There are meds and ways to protect yourself from these two things, but if you want a bigger challenge, you can definitely increase this to high or simply just turn it off if you don't want to deal with it at all. The oxygen consumption is also a thing, but in the forest biome, you actually don't have to worry about oxygen too much. But of course, when you go to space, that becomes an issue. But if you don't want to deal with it neither, you can also turn it off. Then you also have the food consumption, which is directly related to stamina. So every time you run, you lose stamina and it makes you more hungry. But if you want to be even more hungry, you can also speed up the food consumption rate or just basically turn it off. After that, we talk about the resources because, as I said before, it's a voxel game where you have to mine iron, copper, and other things. So this determines how much ore you will find on average on a specific deposit. You can change it from poor all the way to rich. You can also change the number of deposits that you will find in the planets. If you would like to find very few of them, you can change it to few all the way to plenty. The auto miner depletion. If you set it to true, it means that when you place an auto miner, which is a machine, on a deposit, it will auto mine using up fuel. And if you set it to true, it will deplete the deposit. If you set it to false, you mean you can instantly use the auto miner on that particular deposit. On the right hand side, that's where we can determine the difficulty of the enemy itself. You can change from hard all the way to easy whenever you start on whatever planet you start on. The enemy, which is called the Zyrex, always have at least one base there. And they have drones that fly around and hunt the character down the player. So if you wanna the drones to be much more punishing and hunt you down severely, you can set it to high. Or if you don't want to deal with drones at all, you can also turn them off. So you have total freedom on how you want to deal with drones. The drone base attack. The same enemy, the Zyrex. Once you start a base, they will start a counter on when they will attack your base. So if you set it to high, it means basically they will attack your base every 3 days. So if you don't want to deal with the base attack so often, you can lower it or even just turn it off in case you just don't want to deal with it at all. Then we have the construction section. The constructor is like a workbench, is a machine that you can place in a base or a ship and allows you to craft ammo, weapons, tools, bulks and devices. And there are different tiers of constructors and you can change the speed at which they craft stuff because they have a timer. Certain things take a long time, other things don't take that long at all, but you can also just make it instant and totally bypass the timer. The same thing applies for the blueprint and repair speed because ships can get damaged as well as a base, and you can place down a repair bay and repair your ships. So if you just want it to be instant, you can just set it to be instant. Also, there's a thing called the factory because you don't have to build ships at all in this game. You can just send resources into the factory, choose the ship that you would like to play with, and it has a timer to craft the ship. But once again, if you just want it to be instant, you can set it to instant or change the speed at which you would like to have it done. The blueprint spawn limits how much devices you can actually put on a base. Or no, I'm sorry, I was talking about the next one. The blueprint spawn limit means that if you set it to true, you can only spawn one ship when you're at your base or in your CV. You cannot spawn a ship when you're out in the world. So if you just want to spawn wherever you are, you should set this to false. The other option, block limit for certain devices, the one that I was trying to start, is it sets a limit for the devices that you can actually place on a ship or base. If you set it to true, if you just want to place as much devices as you would like on a ship or a base, you should just set it to false. The next option is the mass and volume system, which on default starts as false, which means it's off, which means that you can actually use any box as infinite volume and place as many things inside it as you would like. The mass will not affect the behavior of your ships, it will not prevent you from lifting off, it will not slow you down, and also your character will be able to carry as much things as you would like. If you actually want a more realistic approach to the game and actually have a limit, you should set this thing to true, and you have to consider the fact that boxes have different capacities as the character has, and you're gonna have to play around it to be able to actually carry what you want, and you're gonna have to make choices and leave some stuff behind sometimes. The CPU points, it's a bandwidth system. It's a system that is independent from any other entity of the game. Each ship and each base has its own separate CPU system, and it's a certain amount of bandwidth that you have to increase in order to keep the same amount of efficiency on a chip or a base. You start off with a certain amount of CPU points, and each block or device that you place into the base or ship adds to that CPU point system. Once you reach that limit, you will have to upgrade your CPU status per se for the next year in order to keep adding more blocks or devices and keep the efficiency at the same level of 100%. But into this I will go in a later video because it will be easier to explain while I'm in game. But that's the settings of the game which you can customize as you're pleasing. So on the following video I will talk about more in-game stuff. For the time being, thank you for watching, and until next time.